miss you so much. I went out to the classroom the other day to get a few things to get ready for the next 2 weeks, and I realized I never got to read this book to you. It is such a fun and silly book about fractions, so I decided to share it with you with the read aloud. I want you to really look at the pictures when we go through it. They're really great. I love it. I'm so excited to share it with you.
Fractions in Disguise, a math adventure by Edward Einhorn, illustrated by David Clark. Some kids collect baseball cards. Some kids collect action figures. Me, I collect fractions. I've been collecting them for exactly 2/3 of my life. In my bedroom, shelves full of fractions cover 3/4 of the walls. Maybe it's because I was born during a half moon, or maybe it's because I'm 1/4 genius, 1/4 stubborn, 1/3 determined, and 1/6 crazy. But for me, it all adds up to one thing. I can't get enough of those darn fractions. So when a brand new 5/9 went up for auction, you know I was first in line to buy it. The 5/9 is a thing of beauty. When you first look at it, it looks like a half. But the more you look, the more you realize it's just a little bit more. The room was filled with the regular customers, Baron von Mathematic, Madame de Géométrique, and the mysterious Dr. Brock, a former university professor rumored to have been fired for the illegal possession of 4/0. I bid $500,000. Madame de Géométrique bid 3/4 million. Baron von Mathematic bid 7/8 million. Our bids were clearly approaching $1 million. Would we ever reach it? Suddenly, we found ourselves in darkness. "There's foul play afoot," cried Baron. His fears proved true. When the lights went back on, the 5/9 was nowhere to be seen. Neither was Dr. Brock. "Alas, he's stolen it," exclaimed Baron von Mathematic. "He never gets his fractions fair and square," agreed Madame de Géométrique. "But how can he hope to hide it?" I asked. "He is a master of disguise, Mr. Factor," Madame de Géométrique explained. "He can take a half and turn it into 2/4 or 3/6. It's still the same fraction, but it looks different." "So am I to understand that he could take 3/5?" I began. "Multiply the 3 by 4 and the 5 by 4, continued Madame de Géométrique, "and have something that looks like 12/20, I concluded. "But it's still 3/5, Madame de Géométrique agreed. "He just doesn't want you to know it." "My poor, beautiful fraction," wailed Baron von Mathematic. "Don't despair," I said. "I have an idea." That night, I worked till dawn. By morning, I had what I needed, a reducer. What is a reducer? It's a half ray gun and half calculator, made from a whole lot of paper clips, a whisk, some discarded computer parts, and sheer ingenuity. What does it do? It removes the disguise from a fraction and reduces it to its lowest terms. I tested it out that morning. For a long time I had owned a 10/15, but I suspected that it could be another fraction in disguise. I pointed the reducer at it and dialed a 2. The top number, or numerator as we call it in the trade, wavered, trying to turn into a 5, but the bottom number, or denominator, stayed the same. I dialed a 3, and the denominator tried to transform into a 5, but the numerator wouldn't budge. I dialed a 4, and nothing happened. Finally, I dialed a 5. The fraction changed completely. The 10 became a 2, and the 15 became a 3, leaving me with a sleek 2/3. The reducer was ready to go. Dr. Brock lived in a mansion that had to be 1/10 of a mile tall. When I rang the bell, he opened the door halfway. "Let me in, doctor," I told him. "I know you have the 5/9 in there, and I'm going to find it." Come in, he purred. "Take a look around. You'll see no 5/9 in here." I went in. There were fractions everywhere, piled on shelves, bursting from cupboards, covering the floor. There was even an enormous 100 hundredths hanging from the ceiling. Quickly, I spotted my first fraud. That 3/21st, I said. It's really a 1/7, isn't it? I pointed my reducer at the fraction and dialed a 3. Both the numerator and the denominator were divided, and now I had 1/7 before me, as I had suspected. That's a very, interesting device you got there, commented Dr. Brock, eyeing the reducer nervously. Ingenious, really. I spotted another suspicious fraction. Could that be the 5/9 in disguise? It was 34/63, and it looked familiar. I dialed a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nothing seemed to work. You can't reduce that one, said Dr. Brock. That fraction's already reduced to its lowest terms, I'm afraid. He was smiling in secret satisfaction as he had said it, but he was right. The fraction was as reduced as it could be. I found a few more fractions that could be reduced. An 8/10 became a 4/5, a 2/16 became a 1/8, and an 11/22 became a 1/2. But no 5/9. I even looked through the garbage full of old fractions and fraction pieces so small they were worthless. I found a piece from a 1/28 and a 1/63 and a 1/92. The 5/9 was nowhere to be seen. There was something I was missing. Well, it was nice of you to visit, Dr. Brock began saying. I would invite you to stay longer, but I was just about to polish all of my This 1/63. Where did it come from? I interrupted. It's just an old broken fraction, sputtered Dr. Brock. Quickly, I raced back to the 34/63. The tiny 1/6 fit perfectly into it, making the fraction 35/63. This was a fraction that could be reduced. Wait, no! Cried Dr. Brock. But it was too late. I had already pointed the reducer and dialed a 7. The 35 divided and became a 5, while the 63 divided and became a 9. There it was, right in front of me, the 5/9 I had been looking for. Very clever, Dr. Brock said with a sneer. I didn't think you had it in you. He raced up the stairs and unhooked rope. Suddenly, the 100 hundredths above me began falling, all 100 pieces of it, looking like daggers. I dialed the reducer up to 100, aimed high, and jumped for cover. A solid disc landed with a clatter and rolled away. The 100 hundredths had become a single whole, no longer a fraction at all. But Dr. Brock was gone. Baron von Mathematik and Madame de Géométrique couldn't believe it when I told them the story. You did it, Mr. Factor, the Baron cried, saluting me. The fraction is yours, said Madame de Géométrique. You earned it. I put it in the most prominent place on my top shelf, right next to the reducer. Now, every morning when dawn comes, the first ray of light through my window lands right on the 5/9. It doesn't look half bad. Look at this last illustration and see how many fractions you can find. They are hidden all over.
I hope you enjoyed this book as much as I do, and I can't wait to talk to you guys soon. Bye!